maybe maybe I give you some forms of terrorism. And please, this is not exhaustive. And I'm not going to give you a detailed description of the phenomenology. There are many varying attempts to categorize the phenomena of terrorism. Let me just find 5 categories which comprise most of the forms of terrorism today, to my knowledge. These categories and the examples are surely not exhaustive, as I already said. First, let me look at the ideological terrorism. This form of terrorism is characterized by the demands of its actors for a revolutionary change of political and social structures. This is a form of terrorism which was found very much from the end of the 60s until the end of the 80s all over Europe. Let me give you some examples. The so-called Red Army faction, it was the RAF, which we always abbreviated it like Royal Air Force, but RAF means Red Army faction. It started spreading its terror. They already existed before the 70s, but they started spreading its terror over Germany in the 60s until the 80s. We had the Red Brigades in Italy, BR, Brigati Rossi, in the 70s until the 90s. In France, we had the AD, Action Directe, which was such an ideological, motivated terrorist organization. And worldwide, we had the Japanese Red Army, JAR, with actions between the 70s and 80s, even affecting Indonesia. These are the forms of terrorism I was confronted with when I was a young officer in the police. The main one, ideological terrorism. But we have ethnical terrorism too. Ethnical terrorism expresses the demand of an ethnic or political minority for political autonomy, or even having a separate state from the existing country, which you then call separatism. Examples: Northern Ireland, the Irish Republican Army, or IRA as it was called, from 69 until 89, still existing and a big threat to the Spanish state, the ETA, which is an abbreviation in the Basque language for Basque Fatherland and Freedom. It is an autonomous organization in the northeast of Spain, which tries to get this ethnically different part of Spain away from Spain. Although they have their minorities too in the southern part of France, which was very actual just a week ago when they made a big arrest of one of the ETA terrorist leaders in France. They always used the border to walk in between, hide in France, make their attacks in Spain, but as the cooperation between the police forces in Europe improved very much, it doesn't help them, luckily, anymore. We have a very strange way of terrorism, which I call the vigilante terrorism. What is this? This form of terrorism describes law and order movements that commit terrorist acts to secure the existing order outside the legal system, and of course not respecting the government's forces and violating the actual laws. Let me give you some examples. In Northern Ireland, where you had the ethnical motivated terrorism of the Republicans in the north, you had loyalist groups too, like the Ulster Freedom Fighters, UFF, or Ulster Voluntary Force, which committed on their side terrorist acts against the majority of the Republican population. Sometimes people mix it up with religion. They say the Republicans are the Catholics and the loyalists are the Protestants. Of course, the Catholics were or let's say the Republicans were Catholics, but there was no religious background. The background was mere of ethnic and social, in an ethnic and social way. And you had these horrible organizations throughout the United States, especially in the South, called Ku Klux Klan, which committed crimes to defend their existing rights, but then going into ethnic things to calling the black people a worse race and committing crimes against black people, which later on went into this white supremacy terrorism, which unfortunately you still find in parts of the USA. And now let me get to the religious terrorism, which always makes me a little bit uneasy, because I myself do not believe that it really has something to do with religion. For the religious terrorists, violence is first and foremost a sacramental act or a divine duty executed in direct response to some theological demand or imperative. The most known form of this terrorism at the moment is in the Al-Qaeda network. I don't call it an organization anymore, because it is not an existing organization. There are many, many different organizations which belong to this Al-Qaeda network. Of course, the GI in Indonesia, but in this country you always found Christian and Islamic terrorism, like in Poso. This kind of terrorism certainly is the most dangerous one worldwide because of its international implications. The countless numbers of civilian victims and the predominant modus operandi of suicide bombing. This makes it unpredictable and very, very dangerous. When talking about religious motivation, I always say, because I have many contacts to Muslims, to Christians, to many other religions, you don't find any of the big religions which allows you to kill someone for any of these reasons. So I doubt very much if this terrorism is religious motivated, but still, as they call themselves, being religious, I use this word too